Hi everyone, Gerard Scarpesi, craft hairdresser, co-founder of Hairbrained. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a great razor technique that's um, basic and something that everyone can do and should do, but it's just not simple because you really have to interpret the hair. I've pre-cut one side here so you can get an idea. I'll take that clip out of there. You can see it's what we call a skimmed razor bob. So it's kind of, the idea is that it's one length, but every section is tapered by using a planing or a skimming or a flat method with the blade. Very simple, but a lot of touch, a lot of kind of tactile relation with the hair. The product's going to be very important, and today I'm going to be using products from our friends at Away. Away is a great Italian brand that focuses on agrocosmetica and creating products that come in glass bottles. It's a plastic-free company, which is awesome. And you'll see a lot more content from them through us over the years as they become a great partner. So I'm going to be using the No Rinse Moist Conditioner. I like to have a little bit of a cutting agent in the hair. So I'll be spraying this through and kind of adding it on sections as we go. So it's a nice, light, moisturizing conditioner that won't weigh the hair down and gives a nice slip. I'm going to turn around here so Kelly can get a good view of what we're doing. You can see I've pre-cut the one side. Obviously, I have to give myself room. I'm coming down here and putting my fingers away. Now, this is the skimming. It's going to come from about the middle of the section and very, very light. The pressure has to be very light. This is tapering it down. And then when I feel like it's gotten tapered down enough, I shorten the stroke and focus on the ends where the line is. Very, very simple. Here, we want to bring this hair back a little bit, over direct it back, skim very, very lightly. I'm using my feather styling blade with a fresh, nice new sharp guard in the beautiful matcha color. It's been super, super popular. Now you can do a little checking by pinching, and you can even come back with your scissor. I'll probably wait till I do a few sections before I do a little checking with pointing. You don't obsess here. You want to let it develop. And let's do just that. I'm going to let it develop. Taking sections about an inch thick. We don't want them too thin for this, kind of flat razoring or skimming or planing. There's lots of names for it. But basically, what you're doing is really tapering the section down, using a little bit more of the No Rinse Moist Conditioner. Come down. Now, the thing with this is I want every section, I'm kind of starting every section right about middle of the ears. So I'm coming from here very, very gently, almost barely touching the hair at first. Then when I start to feel it come off, wait for it, and then focus on the ends of the hair. So you're tapering and creating the line at the same time. Remember to bring this back nice and square. Protect the corner behind the ear. Very, very gentle. And come through. And again, you want to move that hair around. You can check with a little bit of pinching and grab any little pieces that you missed. You can also stop, if you feel maybe you're off balance or there's too much, you can come back with your scissor and use a little point cutting to balance with the other side. Obviously, I pre-cut the other side so that you guys can see the visual. You can see it's got this nice kind of fun little texture on the ends. Very, very simple, but not easy. That's what I like to think about when I think about razor cutting. I keep my looks and my ideas very, very simple, but the truth is they're not easy to execute. There's so much feeling that goes in. I'm going to take a look at this sectioning here and I'll explain it. So obviously as I work up the head, I'm just working with 1-inch sections through the back, but I've got the triangle sectioned off of the hair that's going to fall over the face. I've got the hair over the ears sectioned off, and let's just clean up that section, right? Because when any kind of bob, you have to be really conscious of the hair that's falling over the ears. So I'm just resectioning that because it's been sitting here for a little while. Just make sure it's nice and organized. Get that out of the way. Now working up the back and these simple horizontal sections, about 1 inch. I'd like to say hello to you. If you're joining us from anywhere in the world, let us know where you're watching from. We've been sharing education like this for many, many years on Facebook, and it's a pleasure to be back and brought to you by our friends at Away, credible brand out of Italy. They really have a lot of ethical beliefs about how they produce their product and what they bring into the world. And the products are great. Holding the fingers right down below. Now again, notice where I'm starting. So each section gets skimmed about the same amount. I start about mid-ear. So I'm coming down, holding my elevation low. Pressure is just so light, and you're keeping your eyes on it and maybe speeding up and then kind of being more stationary here. So it's a different kind of precision and control. It's not geometric, but it definitely takes a lot of control and the combination of what your eyes are doing and what the hair is doing. Bringing this hair back, slightly over directing, fingers square. Again, you might say, why razor? I mean, this is a very, very particular technique that you can only really do with the razor. There are definitely different techniques that you can do with scissors, even a folding razor, which you'll see me use a lot. But this particular technique is great with a guarded blade. The guard makes it so you don't have full contact with the hair, so you're not really pulling the cuticle. And if you've got a great product or cutting agent in the hair, like I'm using, you can see the hair beautifully healthy, shiny. This hair was actually lightened. This is a dark mannequin that was lightened with bleach or lightener for another class that we did a while ago. So it's some of the most fragile hair, but if you use the right product and you have good technique, and most importantly, well, good technique is most important, but second most important is a nice sharp blade. Working my way through. Very, very simple and consistent. Similar, I'd say like when you're learning how to cut with the scissors and you're really trying to master a one length bob with a scissor, a blunt bob, this is kind of like the same idea with a razor. This is one of the first things you want to kind of start to learn. But the nice thing about it is it's always going to look trendy, as long as textured hair is in fashion, which it has been for a very long time. Without having to overly layer the hair or really chop into it, you can get a really beautiful effect. Sometimes flat razoring like this can be a little challenging. That's why this is such a great lesson to begin learning how to work with. Great mannequins, like what I'm working with here from Pivot Point. This is the Erica mannequin, a great training tool. And there you can see the back complete. You can see what it looks like when it's dry. I'll talk about some of the other products that I added here as I was drying. Now we're going to move into the sides. I want to put the head up in a natural position. I'll elevate the guest, the client, a little bit higher, and I might tilt their head away from me a little bit. Now again, I'm going to start to take 1-inch sections very, very simply. Use the wide side of the comb to take the section. This is the HB Pro comb. It's my favorite comb for razor cutting because of the wide side, the sectioning tooth, and then the really fine side for great tension. The razor cuts soft enough already, so you need the hair to have be combed through really cleanly. I'm going to split this about the middle of the ear, and I'm going to comb this hair over the ear, back behind the ear, and use just a tiny bit of over direction and kind of C-shaping around the back of the ear. I'm also not going to do much skimming here, right? This is where we can get a hole. This is where our bob can jump up a bit. So I've closed it down. But now here in the front where things get thick, I look at that line again. I want to think about the middle of the occipital bone, and I want to start skimming again. Sometimes it's also called planing or flat razoring. We've got so many different, I just says there's so many different hairdressers and so many different personalities. There's so many different names, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I can think of one time early in my career where I thought everyone needs to learn and use the same language. But after teaching for over 30 years, working with thousands and thousands of hairdressers, I think that would actually be a step backward for our industry. I think individuality and expression is super important. So combing this hair back. And ultimately, it's a language of the eyes. You can call it whatever you want, but you just have to be able to see it. So I'll start to skim just a little bit here, but not as dramatically in other places. Obviously, we want to protect the hair that lives over the ear, especially towards the back of the ear. Now here, opening it up, skimming a bit more, very gently, then focusing on cutting the line at the back, and I'll focus on cutting the line at the front. I definitely, as I said, this is kind of basic razor cutting, but very salon friendly, very useful. I do really insist if I'm training someone that they've really trained with the fundamentals of the scissor first. I think it's always scissor first to understand shape and line and start to get dexterity. But for me and for the, my philosophy is then when you want to add more feeling to your work, um, it's worked beautifully for me to start to work with the razor. And again, there's basics of the razor, and this is one of them. Okay. So again, keeping that hair damp as I work, using some of the OA no rinse moist conditioner. I love what this is doing to the hair, giving a nice slide with the blade. Um, and really kind of adding that like moisture and weight. You see the way that hair just has that nice saturated look to it. You want that cuticle nice and smooth so that you can really kind of dig into what you're doing here. Wonderful company, OA. We've been working with them this year and getting to know the ethos of the brand, the people behind the brand. It's really all about the ingredients. They have their own farms in Italy. It's called Agra Cosmetica. So they're really all about what they put in their packages and then their back packages themselves. They are what's known as a plastic-free company, which is pretty amazing. All right, I can open up my skimming here right now behind the ear because we've got more than enough there and we don't want this to be too heavy. Do you see how simple this can be? I mean, but again, when you first do it, you might take too much off. You might not take enough off. I've taught lots of people these techniques, and it's just something you got to get a little bit of a feeling with. It's like maybe the first time you did a balayage or you painted hair. Maybe it got too blonde or maybe it didn't get blonde enough. You have to kind of experience it for yourself a bit. Okay, now taking down the triangle on this side. It's been sitting there for a while, so we're going to go ahead and dampen it again with some of the no rinse moist conditioner. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the weight out of this first before I cut the line. I'm going to bring it forward and I'm going to use a slicing technique. So coming in here vertically like a pen and slicing through. So this will help give some separation and kick towards the face. I like to do it, especially because it's kind of a bigger section. By taking that weight out first, it's going to make it easier for me to read this. Come over to the side, find your line, and again, think about where your skimming starts and think about where it ends. You shorten the stroke there at the end. Over direct this hair to where it's going to be worn. I always say cut it behind the eyebrow at the very least. Worst problem is when you style it, then it'll be a little bit too long. The corner will be a little too heavy, and then you can kind of play with it. But if you bring it forward when you cut it, you might round the corner off and kind of lose some of the beauty of what a classic bob can look like. Really, that's all there is to it. Very, very simple. I can come back now and again do some detailing with the razor down here if there's any graduation or disturbance on the hairline. I can also work with my scissor. I haven't really used the scissor very much to this point, but we can come back and we can look for our line and detail the squareness of the line. Hairlines in the back are typically a little lower. I mean, mannequins have pretty perfect hairline, but usually this is where you have the most work to do. There's some growth directions, some strong growth patterns pushing around that you have to kind of detail and work with. So that's the technique. So next, what I did to get the effect that's happening here, I work with another product from OA. This one's called a smoothing cream. And you'll notice, again, they don't use plastic. So this is kind of like a color, the same thing that some color products tend to come in. I guess it's kind of like an aluminum. It didn't take much. I used about this much on the other side, just a pea-sized amount. Very small amount. And this is beautiful. I found it very moisturizing, gave a nice kind of control and grip to the hair. So I worked that through mids to ends. I didn't feel like I needed much on the roots. And since this is kind of a low volume look, I didn't add anything to give a lot of control, but you can feel it really kind of polishing and smoothing out the hair. Obviously smoothing is great with a brush or blow dryer, but I was thinking, and I haven't tried this yet, but I could see this diffuse drying really beautifully as well. All right. Then what I did on the opposite side, I came in with my flat brush. I don't want to round brush something like this. I think it can make it look kind of old fashioned. And I did wrapping wrapping back and forth, forward and backward. Then I started to break it down into smaller vertical pieces, and I used my brush in a vertical way. So the ends, you can see even on wet hair, it just kind of kicks out and bends. So that's what we did here. I went through section by section to get this very, very simple finish where I came through, pulled through. Could do maybe a little bit here. And then even kind of try to like bend it. You can see that product is in the hair here. And there's one more product that I put in that's really helping. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Look at that polish. So after wrap drying, I broke it down at the bottom, the top, and the middle, and I came through like this. If you're somebody who uses Denman brushes or flat brushes, see what happens if you do it vertically like this. Yeah. Okay. Then to finish off, I used a little bit of Glimmering Bond. So this is a gel that creates shine. I used just a tiny little bit, and I put it on my fingertips. It's got shine and it's got good hold. So I put it on my fingertips. I really kind of rubbed it together, and I started to kind of really just kind of pinch through to create a cast. And even if it dries a little bit firm for the first few minutes, as we know with all gels, as you shake them out and move it through, you can kind of start to lose that cast. Again, you can see the beauty of this razor cut, what it does. It's a one length, but it's very lived in. There's no short layers on the top or anything like that. And you've got maximal, you get that really kind of pretty little bend in the ends of the hair very easily. After that product dries in a little bit, I want to maybe break up the cast a little bit with Silk and Glow Serum from OWAY. Again, in a glass bottle, just a tiny little pump. And again, very concentrated, beautiful product. So just use a little bit on your fingertips and pull through. So there you have it. The technique was razor planing or razor skimming, or sometimes people call it flat razoring, section by section in a very, very simple way, working horizontally, and kind of trying to be consistent about tapering. It's also called tapering. Call it whatever you want. Just get it to look beautiful and make your clients happy. That's what matters the most. Thanks again for joining me, and thanks to OWAY for the continued support.